Welcome in to the Lucas and Lucas podcast. We are back after Mike Lucas was so busy for over a month. He has finally made time in his extremely busy schedule to come back on to the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Mike, it is great to have you. And while some things may take a long time to develop and some things just are annoying to try to get done, nothing changes for the New York Jets. There's constant drama. And the latest, Haason Reddick, who the Jets traded for back in March, a conditional third-round pick that could become a second if he plays like 67% of the snaps. Well, now Haason Reddick, without participating in practice, without playing in a game, has requested a trade, and it's same old Jets all over again. The season hasn't even started yet. What a complete, absolute debacle. How the hell does this happen?
It's Frank. It's hard to fathom how it happened because when the Jets acquired Haason Reddick, you would assume they knew the business of getting in bed with Haason Reddick, which is he wants a contract extension. He's not going to play on his current deal, and if he doesn't get that contract extension, he's going to be pissed off. So you make that deal, and you lose Bryce Huff, assuming you're going to figure this out with Haason Reddick. And I'm shocked and flabbergasted and befuddled at the fact that Joe Douglas and the Jets front office didn't have a better plan in place. And now they're surprised by this. And they're just going to stand still and draw a line in the sand and say, this is our approach. If you don't like it, you can get out. Well, you traded for him. So at this point, you really don't have an option. You kind of have to cave and not give him everything he wants, but come to some sort of mutual agreement that even probably leans more towards the player than what the team wants to give. But there's no way, Frank, you make that deal without knowing the exact situation you were getting into with Haason Reddick. And unless something changed from when the deal was at first discussed to then actually executed, this is a catastrophic organizational failure by the New York Jets.
So it seems like, because he had an introductory press conference with the Jets where he seemed extremely happy to be there. He said, whatever the team needs, like I'll do it. So I would like to believe that, listen, Joe Douglas is not a stupid person. I'd like to believe that, the Jets crossed their T's and dotted all their I's before making this pick, and that this was just a situation where Haason Reddick's agent, who also represents CeeDee Lamb and a couple other NFL players who are having contract issues at the moment, that this is a situation where the Jets traded for him, that he agreed that he was going to play and whatnot, and that he decided at some point over the offseason, whether it was in May or June or whatever, that he was going to hold out and demand a new contract, as opposed to Joe Douglas completely botching the whole situation. That's what I want to believe, because as you laid out, Joe Douglas, you cannot be this incompetent. Like a third round picks are extremely valuable, and you just can't botch this like this. It's an extremely embarrassing look, and I like I said, I'd like to believe this was Reddick and his agent acting out crazy, and that Joe Douglas just didn't completely screw this up, because that would be just all-time horrific. Look, you can't be that stupid as a GM when a guy who is acting out with his old team, and it just makes it just, when you look at common sense, you can't allow that to happen. It's sort of where I stand in the situation.
Like I said,
What do you believe though? Do you believe that Joe Douglas botched this and didn't do all of his pre-trade work, or do you believe that Haason Reddick changed his tone?
I hope it's Haason Reddick changed his tone. Like you said, I just refuse to believe that any general manager would be willing to get into bed with Haason Reddick, knowing his current contract situation, and expect him to just be happier in a different bed that isn't still made. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it's not a change. He didn't want to play on the last day of his contract. He still doesn't want to play on the last day of his contract. He has 10 plus sacks each of the last 4 years, Frank. The number of guys who have done that is extremely thin.
It's only him and one other player. Do you know who that player is?
Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett, baby.
Yeah.
Cleveland's own, baby. The
So,
Cleveland Browns are back.
well, they have their own drama today. Their second round pick has been arrested for threatening his girlfriend with a gun and potentially assaulting her. So we're about to deal with their own drama right now. But this is the Jets' catastrophe right now, Frank. Yeah. So I have to assume it's Reddick changing what he wants, because you and I could agree to do a podcast, Frank, And when we agree to do a podcast, we know we're going to talk sports. If he would come out and ask me a political question in either direction, I'd be like, no, okay, nope, not doing a podcast anymore. Like, don't want to talk about that. So I'm assuming it's a change in that direction and not from ownership.
So how do you think this ends? Do you think that Haason Reddick is going to sit out the season? Do you believe that the Jets will eventually come to agreement with Reddick and that he'll be on the field, at some point in the first couple of weeks of the
Yes.
season? Or do you
Yes.
believe that you believe they'll come to an agreement?
Yeah, because I don't think Reddick is willing to sit out, because he clearly
How do
wants
you
more
know?
money.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
because
you don't know. You're just
he
speculating.
clearly wants more money. If he sits out, he's at the latter stages of a career already. He's not going to get a big contract after sitting out an entire year. That didn't work well for Le'Veon Bell. I can't
All
imagine.
right, so I think running back holdouts are hands down the worst holdouts for a player because every single running back who's ever like held out in the history of the league has like never been the same after that. Le'Veon Bell, Le'Veon Bell's career, as you sort of mentioned before, essentially ended. I mean, he still played a few more years and had a few stops with teams, but he was never the elite force that he was pre-holdout. Josh Jacobs held out last year, had a significantly down year for the Raiders. Now he's on the Packers, so we'll see if he's able to bounce back. But it just seems like any running back for whatever reason. I don't know if it's they stopped the training or whatnot, the offseason work, but they just never seem to be the same after holding out. So uh hopefully for Haason Reddick and the Jets' sake that this holdout won't completely ruin his whole momentum for the year, because I feel like I guess in general whenever a guy holds out it takes them like multiple weeks during the season to get any sort of rhythm and momentum going in their favor, which is a little bit of concerning.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about CeeDee Lamb today. He was still practice for the Cowboys, and they get ready to take on the Browns in Week 1. And
Oh,
I'm
so
wondering,
Cleveland's like all excited about the possibility that CeeDee Lamb won't be on the field Week 1 against the Browns.
I think we all think he's going to play. I just would prefer his first day of practice be the week of the game and not these 3 weeks in lead up. So yeah, for your sake, for the Jets too, man. I hope Haason Reddick finds his way back into camp, but it's a weird situation from the outside looking in. Just because it seems like it's such a simple, hey, this is what I want. Okay, well, we're trading for you because we're going to give you what you want, and that just hasn't happened. It's the whole Ayuk thing. I mean, it's similar with Ayuk.
So the latest with Brandon Ayuk, the embattled wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, according to Ian Rappaport, the 49ers and Steelers have a deal in place. They're just waiting for Ayuk for the 49ers to sign off on it. And the 49ers also have a long-term deal out to Ayuk, and he has not accepted yet. So uh sort of the same old with Brandon Ayuk. That's sort of been what's been going on for a week, but I don't really care about Brandon Ayuk at the moment. We got a lot of other issues going on, including the New York Yankees, who lost 12-2 to the Chicago freaking White Sox. I knew as soon as the top of the first inning ended, when after Aaron Judge hit an RBI double to make it 1-0, he's at second and third, nobody out. They did not score the rest of the inning, only led 1-0 after the top of the first. White Sox immediately bounced back to take a 2-1 lead after one. And as soon as that happened, I knew the game was over. And listen, it's kind of I don't believe the Yankees have enough to win the World Series. Their starting pitching is just clearly not good enough. Cole's been, still trying to find his rhythm. Luis Gil was great in May and has been much more inconsistent since then. Carlos Rodon could pitch 7 scoreless innings any given day. He could last, 2/3 of the inning, give 10 runs on any start. So no idea what to expect from him. I don't trust Nestor Cortez or Marcus Stroman for my life. So the Yankees, they're just not at any given day, no matter who's starting, do not trust them at all to get the job done. And then there's the whole bullpen situation. Clay Holmes is one of the most stressful closers the Yankees have ever had in my lifetime. Obviously, they haven't had a lot. It's basically been Rivera, Chapman, and now
It's such an
Clay Holmes.
unfair bar, Frank. Because he's still a good closer, but it's
He's
such
a
an
solid
unfair
he's a
bar because
solid reliever,
Mariano's the
but
GOAT.
it's just when he's like walking guys, and the most frustrating part about Clay Holmes is when he gets that soft contact, like the little bloopers that fall and those little infield dribblers down the first or third base line or sort of near the pitcher that Clay Holmes has to field. Clay Holmes is a horrific fielding pitcher, and anything that he has to field, you just know that it's not going to end up well for the Yankees. Uh so there's a ton of issues. Alex Verdugo just can't continue to be playing. I mean, Jason Dominguez is rotting in the minor leagues. It's absolutely preposterous. But the other issue is I guess the other point I want to make is that there's no dominant team in baseball. Like the Dodgers, every other day they're losing a pitcher to Tommy John surgery. So like, who knows what they're gonna be like? They just got Mookie Betts back, but their offense may be so good that it won't matter. And in the American League as a whole, like the Orioles are, have been playing just as poorly as the Yankees, and the Guardians are playing well, but like they don't really have the pedigree. So like the other point is that like there's no other truly dominant team that truly scary. Honestly, the scariest team is the Astros. Because they're playing, they've won 6 in a row. They're playing their best baseball of the season. So like if you're asking me what team I'm most afraid of right now in the American League, it's the Astros by far.
The Guardians keep finding ways to win. It really doesn't make a ton of sense. I've given up trying to rationalize it, Frank, in terms of how they win. Their bullpen's awesome. They get timely hitting. Their starting pitching is complete hit or miss. But for the Yankees, I don't feel good about any team in baseball. Like, if the Yankees got super hot and won the World Series, I could see it. If they flamed out and somehow lost in the first round, I can see it. Like, there's such parity in Major League Baseball this year that it is absolutely, unquestionably, undeniably a crapshoot. And if anyone told you right now that they felt super good about any team individually in either league, I tell you they're on crack.
1 week from today, in the Bronx, Yankees open a 3-game set with the Guardians. Monster series. Should be a show as the Yankees and Guardians battle in a matchup of what should be 2 of the top teams in the American League. We'll see if the Yankees can salvage the series against the White Sox here. They obviously lost the first game 12-2. Nestor Cortez is going to get rocked here on Tuesday night, and then Yankees don't have a starter.
I can't stand it.
I mean, the White Sox entered this series. They have lost 24 of the last 25 games. They averaged 3 runs a game, and they go out against the Yankees to score a season-high 12 runs on a season-high 18 hits. The White Sox have not been able to hit a beach ball, and they go out there against the Yankees, and they look like murderers row. It is one of the most embarrassing losses of the season. The Yankees left 9 runners on base in the first 4 innings. Like, and Aaron Boone goes out there after the game, just one of those days. Like, I know, like, I continue to get suckered in by this team. I continue to, like, I know, because in reality, I know they have no chance of winning. But as, the fanatic in you, you keep getting suckered in. And we'll see. And I'm sick and tired of Aaron Boone being worried about hurting people's feelings. Take Verdugo out of the lineup and call up Jason Dominguez. Who gives a crap how Verdugo cares about it? He's not going to be on the team next year anyway. So what difference does it make?
Yeah, listen, Dominguez is too good of a prospect not to get a chance. He has too many skills and tools in his tool belt to think he couldn't help this team in some capacity. And right now, and for actually the last probably month, if not even more, the production from Verdugo just doesn't match. Or the expectation for Verdugo does not match the production. You need more from that spot, especially a guy with some speed who can get on base at the bottom of the lineup. So Judge and Soto and those guys are getting up with guys on as opposed to empty bases for solo shots. So yeah, I'm all in favor, Frank. The Verdugo experiment was fun, but it is officially
It was not fun. It was a nightmare.
It was fun when it started.
And it was fun for like a week. That's it.
Well, now it's not fun. And I'm over it. I would love to see Jason Dominguez.
So let's move on to USA basketball, as the Yankees are on the verge of being swept by the Chicago White Sox, which is just the nail in the coffin on a horrifically frustrating last about 3 months for the Yankees. But USA basketball, they win the gold medal. What a roller coaster of a tournament this was, especially once we got to the medal rounds against Serbia and then France. Let's start with the Serbia game. And obviously there's 2 sort of ways people look at USA basketball. The first one is, oh, why aren't we winning by 80 points every single game? And the dream team would never have lost or never have made it this close. And then there's the other angle where, wow, what a great the other angle is, oh my God, the world is catching up. The USA is about to choke and give this up. But that was just a extremely exhilarating game against Serbia, especially in that fourth quarter where LeBron and Steph just completely put the team on their back. One of the great true like dramatic international basketball games I could ever remember watching, because usually it's just the USA winning by 40
Ever.
to 50 points. And
Frank, it's one of the best basketball games I've ever watched, NBA or international. I don't care. The beauty of international basketball, Frank, is despite Team USA having immense levels of talent that the rest of the world cannot compete with, there's a continuity factor and a chemistry factor that Team USA can't compete with the rest of the world in. Jokic and his Serbian teammates, that group, that core group plays together every year in the FIBA championships, every year in the world championships. They go through all the qualifying together. That is the Serbian team, for better or worse, at every tournament that Serbia is represented. The U.S. puts together this dream team for a week and a half of training camp and then goes plays in the Olympics. They have the U.S. select team play in the FIBAs. They have the U.S. under whatever team play in other international tournaments. Trying to put together a superstar basketball team with limited practice where everyone has to take on these different roles is not easy. And against bad teams, they can roll. They can look dominant. When they put it together, there's not a competitive team in the world against them. But for these certain stretches, and for the first three quarters against Serbia, when the Serbians were 15 of 30 from three, shooting the absolute piss out the basketball, Frank, while Team USA couldn't buy a shot, and Steve Kerr was messing with rotations and playing two big lineups against the Serbian zone that made no sense, it led to the dramatics. But what made that game so fun was when push came to shove, when it was nut crunch time, when it was put up or shut up. LeBron put on his cape, Steph Curry put on his cape, and Kevin Durant put on his cape, and even Joel Embiid put on a damn cape and said, we are not losing this basketball game. And to see those guys, the guys at the peak of their powers in the NBA, come together and lead America on this comeback, it was as fun a basketball game as I've ever watched, and France was right on that same level. We'll talk about that one next. But it was cool to see how those guys, when the pressure was at its highest, the lights were the brightest, and they needed to be at their best, delivered in a way that you couldn't script. It was incredible, Frank.
that Kevin Durant shot to sort of ice the game against Serbia was just the most classic, like, Durant clutch shot. Like, they give him the ball, he gets to his spot, just runs to it, fade away. Like, the whole time I knew it was going in. It was so like classic Durant and unbelievable. And then obviously in the final, they beat France. France cuts it to 3 with like 2 minutes to go, and we're thinking, oh my God, is this real? Like, it felt like the US was up by like 15 to 20 points, but France was like hanging around. And then Steph, my God, that was absolutely
Incredible.
insane. Those
Incredible.
4 threes that he hit in like the last 2 minutes of that game, capped off by that ridiculous one where France basically threw their entire team at him, and he just hit that step back 3 and put the team to bed. That was, I don't know if it was like the greatest sequence of his career. I mean, I can't think of like a more, like, when, the championship or the gold medal was on the line, like when Steph rose to that level, that was all-time epic. And I could not believe what I was watching when he hit that shot. Just absolutely absurd.
That step back one he hit at the end of France, Frank, when he had LeBron and Kevin Durant wide ass open, and he took a step back 3 over 2 defenders. And in my head, I'm like, that's a good shot. Like, that's the magic of Steph Curry, Frank. He's the only player in the world, the only basketball player on the face of this universe right now that could take that shot and turn down a wide open LeBron and KD. In that moment is Steph Curry, and he hit it, and it is incredible. Incredible. The 8 threes or 7 threes he hit against Serbia, the 8 threes he hit against France in the championship game, the gold medal game, he was terrible, legitimately terrible in the.
He was terrible the whole tournament
opening
until the Serbia
rounds.
game.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it took him to find the way to play and play off these guys when it mattered most. My favorite part of the whole Olympics was seeing the hierarchy of how Team USA kind of fell into place when it really mattered. And Steph's still that dude, Frank. And I'm not a Warriors fan, you know that. I've always appreciated and admired Steph Curry. Being able to root and like live that Steph Curry experience from a standpoint of someone invested in the outcome, where it wasn't just cool if he made shots, but it was exciting and meaningful. And I get it. I get why he's so energetic and why people love him, and the Warriors fans will defend him to the absolute death. Like, I get all of it. It was incredible. You couldn't have asked for more drama. It was perfect.
Is he the most? He might be the most like likable. Like, there's not a single negative thing that has ever happened to him or that he's ever been involved with. He is the most. I think he's the most like easily rootable superstar. Like, I want to say maybe like of all time. Like, he's never done anything wrong in his whole life. He is so charismatic. He like just seizes the moment. Like, almost like I just think that like I'm thinking like comparing him like to Derek Jeter, but I just think like there are a lot of people maybe jealous of Jeter and envied him because of how much he won or whatnot. But Steph Curry is just like he's a flawless basketball player and a flawless human being. Like, that's just extremely rare to see that.
He People in Cleveland hate him because of the finals and the back and forth and LeBron and all that stuff. I he's the most likable superstar ever, Frank. Like,
In any sport.
I think so. Like, him and Malcolm, like
Who's Malcolm?
Malcolm Kellner, when he won Holy
Oh,
Moly and got to meet him, like, talked about, he's like, I went in there thinking I was gonna hate him just because he's Steph. He's like, no, he's the nicest dude I've ever met. Like, Doc Rivers was on the Bill Simmons podcast and talked about Steph that we don't see. He's a regular sized person who went to school at a tiny college, has been undervalued and underrated as a basketball player his entire upbringing, proved everyone wrong, and has now developed into a top, in my opinion, a top 10 basketball player to ever live, and a guy who changed basketball forever. And I can't find a damn thing to dislike about it. Not one.
do you agree that LeBron should have been the MVP of this tournament?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. I do.
I would. I mean,
It was a sustained greatness. I understand Steph had the best moments, and in the two biggest games, Steph was incredible. But what LeBron did against Serbia in that second half, guarding Jokic as well, at the same time as leading the offense, leading them in assists. He also led them in rebounds, Frank. He was the team's leader in rebounds and assists. I have no issue with him winning MVP.
the other big storyline coming out of this was Jason Tatum, essentially, basically a non-factor the whole Olympics. I believe the stat was he finished 0 for 16 on outside shots. Could not buy a bucket this whole tournament. Obviously, Jason Tatum is coming off winning his first championship with the Celtics. Just signed a contract to become the highest paid player in the history of basketball. And in the Olympics, was a non-factor and couldn't see the floor. I guess. So obviously there was a whole huge media storm surrounding this. How could you disrespect Jason Tatum like that? Dave Portnoy was completely overreacting and went on social media and was like, "I'm rooting for France. Steve Kerr doesn't deserve this."
Yeah,
And the other side of it
it's
is
stupid. There's no other side to that. That's the stupid side. Frank.
so all right. So you're on Team USA and you have 12 guys who are used to being the number one option basically on their teams, like the number one option. So it's not a situation where like, you're Jason Tatum and you're committing to Team USA and you're expecting to play, all 40 minutes, take, 30 shots a game. And this is your team. It's not the way that works, but I do understand that well, he never verbally voiced any frustrations. It was his mother. It was basically every Celtics fan on the planet.
Yeah, Tatum did nothing wrong other than play like absolute dog crap.
So, I mean,
and that's why he didn't play. It's no conspiracy theory. In FIBA basketball, you have to make jump shots. You have to make jump shots. And the number you just read was the number I was going to bring up. He was 0 for 16 on jump shots in this tournament. If you are not taking jump shots and making jump shots in FIBA rules, which is a condensed, smaller court, Frank, which makes shooting even more to premium because you need guys to spread it out or there's no driving lanes. Jason Tatum was unable and incapable of doing that in this tournament for whatever reason. He's been a terrible three-point shooter dating back to the playoffs. He shot 28.6% from three in the playoffs through now. Whatever happened to his jump shot, it's just off. It's broken right now. He's got to find a way to fix it. And my question for anyone complaining about why didn't Tatum play? Well, who you playing him over? He's not playing over LeBron. He ain't playing over KD. Devin Booker was the ultimate role player in this tournament run. Is Jason Tatum going to guard full court and make 50% of his threes? Guess what? He made zero. Frank, you, me, and Jason Tatum made the same amount of jump shots in this tournament. Zero. You know those Olympic rings? That's just Jason Tatum's field goal percentage on jump shots this tournament. Zeros. So who the hell are you playing him for, Frank? Where's he getting minutes?
I guess the counter argument is that he never really was able to get into the rhythm and shoot himself out of those woes because he got such limited.
He did. It was called the NBA Finals, and it was called the Eastern Conference Semifinals, and it was called the second round series.
That's also 2 months ago, but whatever.
He has not made a jump shot. He's not been a consistent three-point shooter in about half a year, Frank. So yes, if you want to give him a little more minutes to try and find it, sure. But
I'm not saying that he should have
played. Who are you
taking
taking those minutes from?
Well, I thought there were moments where like Anthony Edwards was really stinking it up. Where, and by Anthony Edwards, I thought he was going to come out and be like the alpha of this team, but that clearly was shut down in a major way by LeBron, KD, and Steph. Ant got sort of put in his place, but I thought there were moments where he could have, played a much more significant role on this team, and they just opted not to give him that opportunity. But listen, they still won gold. Obviously got a little dicey, and I'm glad they ended up winning because it would have just validated all of Dave Portnoy's nonsense. But the big question here is, going forward for Team USA, if you're a star player, do you have any hesitation about playing for this team, knowing that there's a possibility that you can get Jason Tatum? And you had this, you're an NBA player, you're used to being the alpha, you're making all this money, and now you're opting to sacrifice, your off season, essentially your personal time with your family to go. I guess in 2028 it'll be in LA, so it's not like you're going to
Listen,
Tokyo.
Jason Tatum won a gold medal, Frank, and once again,
do you believe that he is? That is something that he's gonna like put on his. He also won gold in Tokyo too, so he played a much bigger role on that team. But do you believe that when Jason Tatum retires and there's my gold medal from Paris, like that?
I don't think we'll hold it in the same regard, Frank. But at the same time, and I'll keep reiterating this, he had opportunities to play and played poorly. Okay, it's not like Halliburton never got a chance. And I think Halliburton knew the role going into this, that he wasn't going to play. Like, he was a break glass in case of emergency. Tatum had opportunities and did not play well enough, specifically in terms of shooting. And I'll keep going back to this for people who don't understand FIBA. It's a condensed court. You have to make perimeter jump shots, or else the lane is so condensed that there's physically no driving.
And listen, I'm not defending Tatum, but it's also hard when you get such limited action to find any sort of rhythm.
Fair. But guess what? Who also had limited action? Bam Adebayo, who played damn well. Drew Holiday and Derek White, who in spurts played very well. Anthony Edwards, who was terrible against Serbia and not much of a factor against France in the pool games, was really good. Like, none of these guys were playing a ton of minutes outside of Steph and outside of LeBron. And also, Jason Tatum's a 3/4, right? He's a small forward, power forward, wing. The guys who are playing,
I don't know anymore. Tatum's he can play point guard, he can play shooting guard, he can play small forward. He could play any of the top four.
Not in FIBA. He's not bringing.
All right, maybe not in FIBA.
He's not playing center here without physical center. He's a 2 through 4, whatever, but mostly a 3/4 because Booker was locked into the 2 or Ant Edwards. Like that's not his role. He's not playing over LeBron, right? No, he's not. He's not playing over KD. He's not. And those are the two guys that kind of mixed and matched there. Like,
I think you're talking about in crunch time, but there were a lot of minutes throughout this tournament where LeBron, Steph, and KD are not. Those guys aren't playing 40 minutes a game.
They're playing 2 center. They're playing AD and Bam together. So it came down to, would you have played Tatum over Bam? and they both got sporadic minutes, and Bam played significantly better, Frank. And listen, if you want to tell me that they could Steve Kerr have found more minutes for Tatum? Sure. Sure. I'm not saying that's impossible. Like not playing him at all, especially in that first game, I thought it was weird. But Tatum did have opportunities to show he can play and show what he can do to help. And certain players play better in certain lineups. What does Jason Tatum do better than most players in the NBA right now, Frank? Take long contested twos. That's not how the Team USA team operated. Like, it's not, that wasn't in their game. Tatum felt like a round peg in a square hole or a square peg in a round hole on this team from the get-go. And where he could have helped was as a defensive stopper and a guy who could space the floor as a secondary playmaker. Well, they weren't guarding him because he was 0 for 16 from jump shots, Frank. So they just drag it off. They were guarding him, but they guarded Tony Allen. And guess what? Tatum ain't locking up like Tony Allen if he's not getting the ball on offense. That's why Devin Booker was so good in this postseason. And this, I keep calling the postseason, in this Olympic run. Like, could Tatum have got more minutes? Yes. Could Tatum have played a whole lot better to earn some more opportunities? Also true. And I think when you look at the lineup configurations and the style of basketball Team USA was trying to play, Tatum just didn't fit great alongside the guys that were going to get the big minutes. So that's why I think ultimately he did not play as much as he expected. But I do not anticipate that having any impact on the future of Team USA being able to build a star-studded roster.
And seeing how well, yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Just something I feel like players may be able to point to at some point. But seeing how well Booker and Durant played in this tournament was like, damn, the Suns have a chance to be really good. So, well, but I'm also like, and they also stole Tyus Jones as a free agent. So the Suns maybe, I think, really, really good. I obviously in the whole injury factor too, but Suns at plus 1,200 to win the West might be like sneaky good value because OKC, while they have a ton of talent, they still have never really done anything with this core group of players. I think everything that could have gone well for the Mavericks last year went well. So I do expect them to drop off. The Nuggets, Jamal Murray was unplayable for Canada. And, Jokic can only do so much by himself. So I don't know. I don't necessarily am a true believer in the Nuggets. And then the T-Wolves, well, they do have a ton of talent with Ant and Cat and whatnot and Gobert. Like, they're not without their flaws either. And so I just think plus 1,200 for the Suns is sneaky good value. But anyway.
Yeah, it's risky. If everything goes right, the Suns can win it all. But you're banking on a lot of guys who haven't been
right. The health is just way too much of an unreliability to think that they'll be able to stay healthy especially in the playoffs for that 6-week stretch or 2-month stretch, whatever it ends up being. So USA obviously had more close calls in this tournament than they had in any tournament going back to 2004, basically. And you look at the future Olympics coming up. LeBron's, he's not playing again in the Olympics. Steph's not playing again in the Olympics. Durant might, but so those are those are the alphas of this team that are going to be gone. So you look at the 2028, and you're looking at Tatum, assuming he plays. Which why would he after he got embarrassed? You're looking at maybe a Tyrese Maxey, Cooper Flagg, Paolo Banchero. Like it's going to be a whole new crop of players, and you look at the rest of the world. France has Wemby, Serbia has Jokic, Slovenia has Luka, Canada's only getting stronger as SGA continues to develop into one of the best players in the league. I think the USA is going to have. I mean, we'll see in 3 years how it ends up, 3 or 4 years how it ends up looking, but I do believe we're coming closer to a time in the very near future where Team USA falls short of gold in the Olympics because the rest of the world and
France
Wemby
is going to be a problem. France, listen, not only Wemby, but they had the #1 pick in the draft this year, and Risha Shea. They have a top 5 pick coming next year. Who's a 6'5" guard, Frank. The one thing France lacks is like a true playmaking guard. They're going to be a problem, but at the end of the day, I think talent wins out, and the amount of talent that Team USA will be able to.
Yeah, but the thing is, it not necessarily because if talent just would have won out, the USA would have won every game by like 40 or 50 points. Because there's no reason why. There's no reason why a team with Evan Fournier, who can't sniff an NBA floor, should and they had a couple other guys. Guy who used to play for the Celtics I'm blanking on his name.
Garrison Yabusele.
Yeah,
who jumped out of
Yabusele, like
line.
who looked like one of an elite defender.
Yeah, but
Like,
it's always one game, Frank,
and
and
Dennis Schroeder looks like Steve
the
Nash when
greatest
he's
player of all
playing.
time in internet. Well, and part of it is, listen, these guys have played FIBA rules before. It's a different brand of basketball. The physicality you're allowed to get away with in FIBA compared to the physicality you're allowed to get away with in the NBA is night and day. And it takes players a while to adjust. And Steph Curry was the perfect example of that. You can hand check. It's like going back to the 80s. And the familiarity of teammates and chemistry, plus the familiarity of the game itself, the rules, tipping the ball off the rim, like the smaller court, the angles, the spacing, like it is different. It's basketball. It's a different brand of basketball. And, you know, when push comes to shove, I'm still taking my chances in 28 with Paolo and Ant and
Brunson.
Tatum and those guys, Maxey, Halliburton will be back on the team. I'm just taking my chance with those guys over whatever collection the rest of the world can throw together. So
We'll see how it goes. That will do it for this edition of Lucas Podcast. We'll be back maybe next Thursday as the Yankees and Guardians clash in a battle of American League powers. At least one team is a power, the Guardians. We'll see about the Yankees, but that's coming up next week in the Bronx. Monster series. It's the Yankees. It's the Guardians. It's a rematch of the 2022 American League Division Series. Mike is geared up for it. Their show is going to have all encompassing pregame coverage, reaction, everything you need on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And right here on the Lucas Podcast. We'll be back next Thursday to recap the series of the year between the New York Yankees and the Cleveland Guardians in the Bronx as John Kenzie Noel, Jose Ramirez, Stephen Kwan go up against Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Giancarlo Stanton, Clay Holmes, and the New York Yankees. We're all excited for it, and the Cleveland Browns as well.